You might ask yourself why the orders we showed in part 1 are so important for our fall of the Cabal. Well, you know the expression, know thy enemy? In order to understand the magnificence of their elite plan and the magnitude of their evil intent, we must first identify whom we are dealing with here. There is so much misinformation going around, not only on the internet, but also in our history books. That, by the way, were never written by neutral observers, but always by the winners. If you don't understand where the Cabal comes from, how far back they go in history, if you don't know how we were led to believe that all of these orders and movements were separate entities that came and went in history, independently and rather harmlessly, then you will most certainly not understand nor believe the true identity of the Cabal. You will miss the fact that we find ourselves at the final stage of their master plan. And if you don't fully comprehend in which danger we find ourselves, you will not know what to do at the moment suprême. That is why we make this documentary, so you can wake up, see through all the lies, and take action to claim your sovereignty back. That's when you'll understand what we said in the previous series. History books will have to be rewritten. Okay, let's see where and when our two storylines meet, shall we? It was in 1748 in southern Germany, Bavaria, in a small town called Ingolstadt. A boy was born. His name was Johann Adam Weishaupt. At the age of 5, his father died. The Jesuits took him under their wings and groomed Adam, who turned out to be a highly intelligent and strong-minded individual, to become a professor in canon law at the Jesuit University of Ingolstadt. He rewrote ancient historical documents in which the ideology of Lucifer would eventually lead to the complete control of the world. In 1773, a secret meeting took place between Meyer Amschel Rothschild and a select group of 12 elite Khazarian bankers and businessmen. Remember Rothschild, key player in our first storyline? The excessively wealthy and powerful Ashkenazi Khazarian banker from Frankfurt? Well, Rothschild proposed to join forces and riches with the purpose of world dominance. He had set his eye on Adam Weishaupt, who would be perfect to implement their plans in practice and run their organization. And so, on May the 1st, 1776, Adam Weishaupt founded the Bund der Perfektibilisten, the Order of the Perfectionists, later to be called the Order of the Illuminati. It was the fusion of the financial empire of the Rothschilds and the wealth and power of the military order of the Jesuits. Their goal? The creation of a world government and world dominance. Although Weishaupt's name is commonly known among those who study this material, not many people are aware of the fact that he based his Order of the Illuminati on ancient documents, one of which was a letter that was given to him by Rothschild. This letter, referred to as the Constantinople letter, was old and of extreme value to the Ashkenazim. It was 287 years old, written in 1489 by the Nazi, the chairman of the Jewish High Council in Constantinople, as a response to an outcry for help by the head of the Ashkenazi Jews in France. Remember the Khazarians who had fled Russia and who had changed their name to Ashkenazi Jews? They now felt threatened by the other ethnic groups in France. The king had even told them they had to convert to Christianity. The reply of the Nazi in the Constantinople letter was as follows. As for what you say that the King of France obliges you to become Christians, do it. since you cannot do otherwise but let the law of Moses be kept in your hearts. As for what you say about the demand to despoil you of your goods, make your sons merchants, that little by little they may despoil the Christians of theirs. As for what you say about their making attempts on your lives, make your sons doctors and apothecaries, that they may take away Christian lives. As for what you say about their destroying your synagogues, make your sons canons and clerics, in order that they may destroy their churches. As for the many other vexations you complain of, arrange that your sons become advocates and lawyers, and see that they always mix themselves up with the affairs of state, in order that by putting Christians under your yoke, you may dominate the world and be avenged on them. Do not swerve from this order we give you, for you will find by experience that, humiliated as you are now, you will reach the actuality of power. In other words, they were told to fake a make-believe conversion and to infiltrate every aspect of society: commerce, medicine, religion, and legislation, with the sole purpose of revenge and destruction. How Khazarian. Adam Weishaupt founded the Order of the Illuminati in 1776, financed by the Rothschilds, based on this letter, that, by the way, was based on an even older document, more about which in Part 4. 1 year later, in 1777, Weishaupt joined the Grand Orient Masonic Lodge. He made over 2,000 Jesuits head of the many lodges across the world, thus establishing a massive empire of power, in which the Jesuit order was the spider in the web. Weishaupt then officially left the Jesuit order, so that no suspicion would ever be drawn to the involvement of the Roman Catholic Church and the Jesuit Council in the illustrious plans of the Illuminati. The Rothschilds used their riches to finance wars, as they had found out that by financing both sides of each and every war, they would always win financially. They knew no scruples, no mercy. The alliance of the Luciferian Khazars and the Jesuit order had only just begun. Their goals? Personal gain, wealth and power. The submission of the royal families. The annihilation of the infidels. Protestants, Calvinists, atheists, Muslims, Jews. In other words, the destruction of all religions except the Roman Catholic faith. The destruction of all governments, world dominance of the Pope, and revenge. Revenge on each and every one who had ever betrayed them. Revenge on Russia, first and foremost, the country that had expelled the Khazars. But not only that. Remember the vengeance of the Jesuits on the Pope, who had betrayed them? Well, they weren't done just yet. For the European kings of France, Spain, England, Austria, and so on, who had banned the Jesuit order, were about to have a taste of their wrath. The first pawn the Illuminati alliance put forward was Napoleon Bonaparte. The fact that the French Revolution was indeed orchestrated by elite secret societies was documented and proven by the French Jesuit Augustin Barruel. He wrote an influential account in which he focused in particular on Adam Weishaupt, founder of the Order of the Illuminati. According to Baruel, the French Revolution was orchestrated by Freemasons and philosophers like Voltaire and Montesquieu. We'll get back to Baruel in a later stage, so remember his name. Napoleon's advisor was a Jesuit, Emmanuel Sillet. He advised Napoleon on where to go and what to do. In today's language, we would call Sillet his handler. According to many historians and researchers, the Jesuits were the ones who orchestrated and directed the French Revolution and the outcome. Napoleon was a Masonic Grand Master. He was chosen and initiated by the order to play a key role in their planned revolution. Napoleon's brother, Louis Bonaparte, was made Grand Master of the Grand Orient of France. His wife Josephine was a member of the Mason Rite of Adoption. Under Napoleon's rule, the number of lodges in France grew from 300 to 1,220. Napoleon was a puppet of the cabal. We were led to believe he was the front man, but he was not. The hidden hand that some historians believe was to cover an ulcer, seriously, was actually a common Masonic gesture called the sign of the Master of the Second Veil. Many world leaders have shown this sign throughout the ages. The French Revolution started in 1789 and lasted for 10 long and bloody years of absolute terror. It was the master plan of the Jesuit Council to take revenge on France, to destabilize the country through war, and to destroy the French crown. Their tool? The Jacobins, an extremist political movement founded by none other than Napoleon's advisor, the Jesuit Sillet. The Jacobins caused mayhem across France, rioting, plundering, murdering everyone who stood in their way. They left behind a trail of death and destruction wherever they went. The Jesuit plan worked. The guillotines worked overtime. The Jesuit order is the most dangerous of all orders. It has caused more harm than all other orders. The doctrine of the Jesuits entails that their supreme general is the sovereign of sovereigns and master of the world. After the French Revolution had ended, the Napoleonic Wars started. They caused even more instability and destruction, not only to France, but to the many countries Napoleon invaded: Austria, Russia, England, Prussia, Portugal, and Spain, where the royal family was kicked out and Napoleon's older brother was put on the throne. Each and every country that had once banned the Jesuit order and the Khazarian Ashkenazi Jews was now in ruins. This was one of the order's most dominant passions: revenge. During the Napoleonic Wars, the Illuminati alliance deployed their most successful strategy. They financed both the French and the English army. It simply didn't matter who won. War was an absolute revenue model. It was the Duke of Wellington who fought Napoleon and who defeated him at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Nathan Rothschild, a brilliant and ruthless businessman, had his spies at Waterloo, and he had a private courier system, as he knew that fast communication was vital in business. When it was clear that Napoleon had been defeated, the message was immediately sent to Rothschild, who received the news 2 days prior to anyone else. He then made a brilliant move at the London Stock Exchange. Instead of buying English bonds, the gilts, he sold those he had. The other traders noticed and drew the erroneous conclusion that Napoleon must have won the war. They immediately sold their bonds as well, causing the gilt price to drop dramatically. That was the moment Rothschild made his move. He bought all the gilts he could lay his hands on at a very low price. By the time the others had noticed and frantically started buying again, Nathan Rothschild was excessively rich. The King of England, George III, was now heavily indebted to Nathan Rothschild, who had financed his wars. Not only had the king to pay back his debts, he had to pay interest on top of it. He was now in the pocket of the Rothschilds. I care not what puppet is placed on the throne of England to rule the empire. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the money supply. Next, 1914. The Illuminati alliance, that we shall refer to as the Cabal from now on, simply because it's short and to the point, caused World War I, a war initially solely between Austro-Hungary, a dual empire of Austria and Hungary on the one side, and Serbia on the other. What happened? The ruler of Austro-Hungary, Emperor Franz Joseph I, had no successor to the throne, as his only son had committed suicide. His nephew, Franz Ferdinand, became heir to the throne. But his ideas about politics were very different from his uncle's. Franz Ferdinand wanted to decentralize. He wanted autonomy for the various ethnic groups. He wanted to incorporate Serbia into the dual empire as a political entity equal to Hungary and Austria. He was a thorn in the eye of his uncle, the emperor. Although raised in the Jesuit image of his father and uncle, he had a mind of his own. He refused to adopt his uncle's political vision, and he married the woman he loved, which was so not done within the elite. At the time of extreme internal unrest, the emperor sent his nephew to the border with Serbia, where he and his wife Sophie were murdered. According to the official narrative, it was the Serbian Gavrilo Princip who pulled the trigger, and so Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Germany joined forces with Austro-Hungary. England, France, Russia, and later Italy, Romania, Bulgaria, and former Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, came to the aid of Serbia. We all know the results. 4 horror years in trenches, 9 million killed. Germany was in ruins, and that was precisely what the Jesuits had aimed for, as Germany was mostly Protestant. You may remember what it said in the Jesuit oath about Protestants. They would do absolutely anything to destroy their horrible race forever. Some historians may question or even deny the Jesuit background of the rulers of Austro-Hungary, which is odd, as they were prominent members of several Jesuit suborders, such as the Supreme Order of Christ. Emperor Franz Joseph was so high up in the Jesuit council that he was authorized to grant titles such as Prince and Grand Master. In 1880, for instance, he granted this title of Prince of the Holy Roman Empire to the Grand Masters of the Order of Malta. He even founded his own order, the Imperial Austrian Order of Franz Joseph. I promise to go deeper into these orders, plus the evidence of their Jesuit connection, in a later episode. For now, we'll leave it here, as we don't want to get lost in history. After all, we still have to cover the Russian Revolution and World War II in a way it wasn't brought to you in school, I promise.